Congress did appropriate $400 million in its coronavirus relief funding that passed in late March. And that's going to be very influential in helping states to now prepare for an election that's different from what they were expecting to run. So what is this going to be used for? There are a lot of options. Personally, I think there's going to be some level of voting in person in November. And so they need to reimagine what the polling place is going to look like. Are they going to have a bunch of neighborhood polling places like many places on the East Coast had? Or are they going to do more vote centers and try to space out when people are showing up, but allowing all voters to come to any vote center? I mean, I've seen proposals. Do we try to find times for when certain voters can go to a certain polling place or another polling place? That's something that they might consider. But certainly the majority of funding that has been appropriated by Congress, that states are going to have to appropriate themselves, is going to be to address a rapid increase in voting by mail. So some states, for their primaries, have decided to go to all vote by mail elections. That's one thing when it's a primary, especially at this point in the primary process where turnout is not going to be incredibly high. I do think that's going to be really hard in many states that don't do a lot of absentee voting to staff up to 100% vote by mail by November. For example, my analysis of the data shows that about 34 states had less than 15% of their electorate voting by mail in 2018. So we're talking going from 15%, that's the kind of the high watermark in that group of states, to 100% would be a huge number of ballots, about 70 million more ballots by mail. And there are a lot of logistical hurdles there. So many states that don't have a lot of absentee voting, they do a lot more of a manual tallying process for those ballots, or they have their regular precinct-based scanners. They don't have high-speed scanners to deal with that kind of influx. They may want to be leasing those options or buying these high-speed scanners for November, and they can do that with the new money. The other question is going to be whether states are going to pay for postage. Traditionally, most states that don't do a lot of absentee voting, the onus is on the voter to pay for that return postage of the ballot. There are a handful of states out there that do pay for postage, but it's pretty rare. And so I do think the $400 million is likely to go towards that in some capacity. Changes coming this November are going to hit voters very differently. If you look out west, we have Oregon, Washington, Utah, Colorado. Those states have been voting predominantly by mail for years. They know how to do it. Oregon is the first state that went to all vote by mail. They've been doing it since 1998. So they have the process. Their main concern right now is they're in competition with all of their colleagues from across the country to get enough ballot envelopes. Some of these high-speed counters that will come into play for states that are trying to scale up their operations, they require a certain kind of thickness of the ballot to work efficiently. These are not considerations that most election officials have had before. So states out east, where you're seeing very low rates of voting by mail traditionally, are going to have the toughest time. Within states, it's not going to hit all voters equally. We know that many younger voters, college students, they have rarely interacted with a stamp. They might not know how to get a stamp. Right now, it's harder to find them because you can't leave your house. So, if states are not going to be paying for the postage, I do think that's going to be a barrier. And we already know from other reports and academic papers that there are disadvantaged groups when it comes to voting by mail. And there are also certain groups of people who trust the mail service less. So all of these things are going to play into how this election is going to happen and concerns about it and its legitimacy.